Hey, what's good, everybody? I think we are live. This is my buddy Dom from way back when. If you want to give yourself a quick background, you can. I just want to tell everybody the people like how I know you personally is from a time that we worked together down in Bourbonnais, working for the Bears. I know he actually worked for the Bears right now, so that's kind of dope.
Yeah,
But back then, it was like sort of an internship type of period, and there was like a lot of people that were just from around the area trying to work for the Bears. And so that was one of the dudes that I really gravitated towards. He just seemed like a super genuine, super humble and like authentic dude. And that always struck me. So I've always held that about you. So I just wanted to bring you on this podcast. The goal of the podcast, if you don't know as a listener, is just to elevate the conversations that matter. And one of the things that he speaks to pretty authentically is his the intersection of sports and faith and a little bit of music. So we're going to get into that in this conversation. But is there anything I missed or anything that you wanted to touch on before we get into it?
no, I think that's pretty good. I can just, like you said, I can just give a little background on myself so the people can kind of know who I am. But my name's Dom Hillesheim or Dominic, and I'm from like northeast Wisconsin. So I grew up in Wisconsin, then moved down to Chicago after college, which I spent in Iowa. But yeah, as you said, we met in Bourbonnais at Bears training camp when we were working part time, and yeah, we didn't like hang out too much then, but definitely, like talked obviously as coworkers, kind of just gravitated towards each other. You were always using a little skateboard to get around campus, so you're a little
Yeah, still got
little
one.
ahead of me. I was just walking around, but yeah,
That's
that's just
funny.
kind of how we met, and it's
Yeah,
just a 1 year thing. Like some people come back a couple years, but it was just a 1 year thing. But we definitely just kept the
yeah,
communication and like a little friendship going on like
yeah,
social
man.
media and kind of going back and forth like on LinkedIn or Messenger. So definitely thankful that you asked me to be on here. It's really cool what
Hey,
you're doing.
man.
Even being in the UK, we can still keep it going.
Yeah,
So it's
isn't
really
that
cool.
crazy? I think
Yeah,
technology is, we sell it short sometimes. Like, it's so dope. Like, I literally had a conversation with a guy a couple days ago who's in Okinawa, Japan, and then somebody else yesterday who was in California, like in Silicon Valley, and now I'm talking to a homie from Chicago. So it's kind of like
yeah,
I don't know, like internet's pretty wild, and we have this opportunity nowadays, especially with everything going down with the pandemic. It's like a lot of people are a little more or a little less busy. Things are
yeah,
slowing down a bit, and so I figured let's just use this time and have some cool conversations.
yeah,
So yeah,
absolutely.
really, the pleasure is all mine. I thank you.
Yeah,
But to start off this conversation, I kind of wanted to get a gauge of what your personal journey with faith is, because I think one of the things that we are lacking in this day and age, especially where everything is kind of you want like you want the payoff really fast in a lot of ways, like kind of like the way that we just I call it this microwave society where everything is kind of quickly you want to get it right away. And one of the things with faith, especially with this the journey of walking that narrow road and kind of trying to do those right things, is that sometimes the payoff isn't immediate or even apparent. So I just wanted to ask you, like, what has your journey been in terms of maybe you grew up in some sort of tradition and what that has meant to you now as you've kind of become your own person.
yeah, for sure. So I was introduced to faith right away. I have three parents, dad, mom, stepmom, that were all raised in Roman Catholic families. So pretty rich tradition, even with extended families. That everybody Roman Catholic went to church every Sunday, and I went to like religion classes on Wednesdays and
Would you say
stuff.
you're
But
still Roman Catholic? Or
yeah,
is it
definitely.
okay?
Yeah. Every well, right now every Sunday I just watch it on
Yeah,
like the iPad. But
sure, true.
yeah, every Sunday definitely still go to church and stuff. But um, for a while when I was a little kid, I didn't really. I think it's a lot with a lot of little kids where you don't really understand or really get that it's more than a Sunday and Wednesday type thing. So I definitely think I would put myself in that category when I was a little younger.
Especially with that, like with Catholicism, it's so rich in history and so rich in tradition that
Yeah,
it's impossible to get a real handle on that when you're a child. Like to really have a right perspective on that is difficult.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And it's like definitely on Sunday, some of the readings are. are like older, like
Mm,
Latin or like old English vocabulary. So it's a little tough to
yeah,
get a
I could see
handle on.
that.
But like on Wednesdays, that religion was a little, like those religion or CCD classes. Those were a little bit better because you could understand it a little bit more. But I think every kid, not that it's intentional or they don't like their faith or anything, but nobody wants on a Wednesday after school to go
Yeah.
sit in
No, I
another
was
hour
raised
of
in the
school.
church too, a
Yeah,
different type, but I definitely remembered not liking waking up
yeah,
in the mornings on Sundays or going in
yeah,
the evenings on Wednesdays. I'm just like, why?
for sure.
What the
So,
heck is this?
so I think it took me a little bit,
Okay.
to get to a spot where I was actively looking to increase my knowledge or just
Yeah.
continue to like look for ways to get involved. So, um,
Okay.
as you mentioned a little bit earlier in like your intro, uh, the way that I started to pick up on faith was through music and Christian rap. So
Mm,
some of my older cousins that have gotten to a point when I'd say I was probably like right at the end of middle school, start of high school, so like 14, 15, and they were like 18, just about like touching 20,
yeah.
and so they definitely had gone through the process of where they had understood like putting more effort into faith and could really understand like how it could give back to
Yeah.
you.
I think it almost
Um,
can be, sorry to cut you off, but
no, you're
really
good.
quick, like this idea that sometimes we grow into our faith in terms of like that process, I think sometimes can be discounted because I think a lot of people, especially in America, were raised in some sort of tradition. There are very few, like maybe 10% of people just grew up where both parents weren't really a part of anything. And that's
Hmm.
one thing. But I feel like for most of us, we've grown up in some sort of tradition, most of that being the Christian church.
Yeah.
And some of the cynicism that I feel coming from the outside in is almost like this sense of maybe we took somebody else's faith and we didn't really interrogate it as our own. So instead of growing into our own like belief, we were kind of almost like riding on the coattails of like our mom or dad's belief. And then when that wasn't enough, we just kind of dispensed with it. Like we never really integrated it into ourself. And I
Yeah.
think that you're kind of speaking to that a little bit if you want to go in.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a great point because it's not that I didn't learn anything on Sundays or anything, but to make
Right.
it my own, to your point,
Yeah,
I used music and Christian rap to do that.
exactly.
Um, and so I just started, listening when I was driving in my car to like Lecrae and KB and Andy Mineo and those
Mm.
guys. And
KB is
and
dope. I really
yeah,
like him.
they're so good.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that was really cool to me was I I had to like take it upon myself because sometimes when you stand out or do something a little differently, you can kind of naturally get embarrassed. You know what I mean? Where it's like you don't
Right.
you don't really want to put yourself out there, so you kind of like hold back, and then maybe I would only listen to it in the car by myself. But the
Exactly.
cool thing with Christian rap is it's not like gospel music where you can tell right away. So one of the
Yeah.
things that I thought was so cool is I'd have one or two friends in the car, and I would just play it, and then people would be like bobbing their head, like, "Oh, what is this? I've never heard of it." And I was like, "Oh yeah, it's pretty good." And like either I would tell them right away,
Heck
and be like,
yeah.
"Hey, this is Christian rap," or I just like let them figure
Gotcha.
it out
No.
by themselves, and they're like, "No way!" And like, yeah,
Yeah,
just
man.
one word, like Christian rap. It's still rap. It's still like really good
Yeah.
music, and some people got caught on that. So like it was almost like not that you really need this, but it's kind of nice sometimes when you get like a reaffirmation or like people
Yeah.
give you like hey, that's pretty good, and then it kind of got me still going. So I then
That's
got
cool.
like confirmed at the end of high school, and then in college went every Sunday, and that's just how music kind of propelled me to the next step and
That's kind of
really
interesting
committing
you
to
say
it.
that. Because I think I was talking to somebody about music earlier too, and the conversation kind of surrounded on music being this ability for us to have a communal experience, like this sense of like togetherness. And
Mhm.
through that genre of Christian rap, I think it's given a little bit more, I don't know, credence or some sense of, I don't know, community, I guess, for lack of a better
Yeah.
term, to that, because when all your community, especially from something that maybe is countercultural today as Christianity, when all of that comes from the church, or all of it comes from your parents, or all of it comes from, like one source or the other, it kind of makes it feel not as culturally relevant. But when you kind of have all these other players that are speaking to it in their own way, so you have artists and rappers and these different people, it almost gives you that sense of, yeah, I'm not crazy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not alone. Like, there's people who have gone through this, that, and the other thing that are
Yeah.
still able to proclaim the name of Jesus, and that's pretty dope.
Yeah, I totally agree. And even if you take Christian music and put it to the side, just music in general is so
Right.
powerful. You know what I mean? Like you could
Yeah.
be like rolling rolling down the street with your windows down and playing country music, and somehow you could relate to that, and then you're
Boom.
sitting down listening to oldies and you're like, oh yeah, like
Yeah.
everything is, you can pick out ways to relate to all sorts of different music, which makes it all the more powerful when you find something
That's
that
sick.
can match your mood or whatever. It's just music is like
Yeah.
totally an addition onto your life, basically.
Man, that's true. So that actually leads me to the next question, is how your specific walk and how your kind of experiences with Christianity. So that first we're talking about music, and that's a really interesting cultural pillar, I guess. But another one that is probably just as important, and when you start thinking about the way that we experience things communally, is sports.
Cool.
And I think that you actually had a story about how there was a bit of an integration between your history with sports and then your growth in like practicing your faith in a way that's practical. So I guess that's a two-part question, is kind of how do you express that faith authentically in this day and age, but then also how that might intersect with your either your job or with your history in baseball and now football.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like you said, both baseball and football, I can talk to both. Um, Obviously, working for the Bears, everything that I'm saying is just like the opinions of myself, right? I'm not
Yeah, I don't
talking
speak for my
like as a
employer type of thing.
spokesperson
Right.
for the Bears or anything. It's just me. But yeah, it definitely started with baseball for sure. So from a little kid, I always like three, I believe, I started playing t-ball, and up until I was 21, 22 years old is when I stopped playing. So I was very fortunate to be able to go to school at Upper Iowa University, which is Division II school in Northeast Iowa. And I was given the opportunity, or gifted the opportunity
That's beautiful.
um, to play in college, which was a dream of mine
That's dope.
forever. So I kind of had like two dreams as a kid, was to either play professional baseball or to work for the Bears. So I think it was a great merge of both. I got
Yeah.
baseball took me all the way till I was 22, and then when that ended, 3 days later, I started with the Bears. So it was crazy, but
Dang.
I think it was, I don't really know how to explain it, but I think anybody who's listening or anything, when you're truly passionate about something and it's been a part of your life forever, if you ever have a time where all of a sudden it's gone, it's tragic, right?
Mm.
It's not anywhere close to like the loss of a loved one, but it's something that's like tangible, that all of a sudden it's not like money where you can do things to get it back. When
Yeah.
you're done with a sport, when somebody tells you at whatever age it is that you're not good enough to play anymore, for a reason that matters, right? I could go out and play a pickup game with friends
Right.
or
Right. Right.
whatever,
But like
but
organized.
when they tell you that you're not good enough to play anymore and then it's done, it's you
Yeah.
gotta it's tragic, right? It's like
Yeah.
you gotta find something else. So I truly believe that this opportunity that was given to me by the Bears was, there's
So
something more there.
timely.
I know we'll talk about that later, because we
Yeah.
both don't think there's coincidences, right? But
Yeah.
so I had
Definitely we'll
something
get into that.
for 22 years that was, I lived and breathed it every day, right? We're
Yeah.
practicing every day of the year. If you were practicing at a game, and then it was gone. I had senior day
Man.
on May 5th, and that was it. So I think this transition to me was then being able to have an opportunity where I couldn't even think about it being done, because 3 days later I started with the Bears. So with
That's
faith
dope.
intermixed and all that, like I think it was a huge learning lesson for me in my faith with baseball because um, it's such a tough game and it can beat you up, right? The people in the Hall of Fame, the best at it, are only successful 30% of the time, which is
Yeah, I always
which is
thought
kind
about
of
that. Isn't that crazy? Like
it's a it's a crazy
300
concept.
average. That's
Yeah.
boom.
So one thing that I like found out as I was going through was the times that I thought I was the strongest in my faith would be the times that I was doing the worst. So if I was in a slump or I wasn't practicing or playing well, at like every night religiously or at the game every day or at the field, I would pray like, Lord, please just let me like
Man,
find
that's real.
success. You know, like please just let me
Wow.
find success in that. And until I would then find success and then go back to it, I realized that during those times of success, I was only at the field like after I would always go out to like home plate after practice, just say like
Mhm.
a little thank you prayer. But at night, I wasn't saying thank you for allowing me to be
Man,
successful today. I was the only times that I was really asking or pleading was when I didn't think that I was doing well. So
that is interesting.
it was a huge learning curve for me in my faith because it's not just you don't just need them
Right,
in
like genie in the
the times
bottle.
when you're down. You know, like you there's a reason why you have success and there's a reason why you're happy. There's a reason
Yeah,
why you're comfortable and you need to thank him for that as
it's easy
well.
to
You don't,
forget.
yeah. So like
That
you,
is an interesting point, though, because I think that sometimes we think of bad things that happen to us, quote unquote, bad things, and we tend to think of them as ultimately bad, like, wow, this is terrible. But what you're saying, I think, can speak to is this idea that sometimes those trials and those tests are kind of what actually lead you closer to your relationship with God. And if you can hold on to it, that almost can propel you through those good times as well. And it's,
yeah,
I think there's a real purpose to all of that. And so we can actually just get into it right now is this idea of purpose, because there's a
mhm,
really interesting thing that you speak about. And we talked about this last time is this idea that there's no real coincidences. And I think that that is a strong claim to make. But at the same time, if that claim is true, then the implications are huge, right? Like
mhm,
every single person that we come across or every single event that we encounter has some meaning to our development and to our journey through this life. And so with that, I wanted to ask about maybe your story of how you started Chicago Town Blankets and how's that kind of integrates with this idea of nothing really being random. And then
yeah,
you can speak to that a little bit more too. Just
yeah, for sure. So once baseball's ended, definitely like obviously started with football and um, I was baseball was always something that I did, right? I know we've talked about that before, but now
yeah.
wanting to keep it involved in my life, it was something that I could only watch or play catch in the yard. That didn't really matter, but it went from something that I did to something that was kind of on the side that
Yeah.
I watched and
Dabbled
just
in.
yeah yeah and so it was a little bit of a tough transition. Thankfully, like I said, I had all the stuff with the Bears that helped with that transition. But when if baseball was always around and I was going to games or I was just watching them on TV, and baseball has a very interesting hand in how Chi-Town Blankets got started, which is a nonprofit organization that we
So if the
just
listeners don't know,
yeah
Dom actually started a nonprofit called Chicago Town Blankets. If you want to find them on Instagram, what is their username?
yeah, it's just at Chi Town Blankets. It's on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook.
Right. And so, yeah, you can keep speaking. I just wanted to interject and say what the name of it, and maybe if people wanted to follow or check it out. But yeah, I think it's really interesting how those things intersect. So yeah, keep on going with your story.
Yeah, no, that was a good plug. I appreciate that. But yeah, so baseball being such a big part of 22 years, interestingly enough, didn't go away once it had the opportunity to.
Mm.
So my dad and I last year were on a trip to watch the Bears play the Redskins in Washington D.C. Um, and it was a Monday night game, so we had Saturday and Sunday to go around. And Baltimore is really close, and both of us having baseball on our mind all the time. We went to a Baltimore Orioles game,
Nice.
and the giveaway, which also kind of comes full circle because I help order giveaways for the Bears now.
Yeah.
But the
That's funny.
giveaway
Okay.
for fan appreciation was a blanket, and it was actually like super fuzzy on the inside, but it was bright orange on the outside, and it had the Oriole bird. So
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, like I'm probably not gonna use this much, and then it didn't like occur to me after that. So um, spent the weekend there. Bears won. It was great. We came home, and I just threw the blanket on the couch. Didn't think about it. It sat there for probably a week or two, um, and then baseball being the occasion again, I went to a White Sox game. Uh, I think like a week or so later, and I took the train home, and I was just walking down my street, and inside of the entryway of a business, it's probably like 10:30, 11 o'clock, was a man probably not 10 years older than us, so maybe
Hmm.
early 30s, um, curled up, just with his head on his backpack, laying in the entryway, and it was crazy, like aura and like turn, like just weird
Just some
feeling. Not
energy just clicked for
Yeah,
you.
there was like nobody driving on the street, nobody
Hmm.
really walking on the street, and it was dark, right? So
Yeah.
so I like kind of look, and then I just like kept walking. But as I was walking, it was, believe whatever you want to believe, like listeners, whatever. But it was like I got guided down the street, and the only thing that I thought of was there's a blanket on your couch, and
Hmm.
I just grabbed it, and I walked back, and I covered him up, and I just said, "Stay warm, God bless," and I turned around and walked away. And
Man.
it was really quick, but I just walked home, and it was probably like, I don't know, it's like a Thursday or something, and I was like, there's got to be something more to this. There's 80,000 homeless people in Chicago. There's a bigger need. It's not just one.
Man.
It's not just one blanket. So tying baseball back into it was not something that I did anymore, but it helped transition and guide me to what I wanted to do next. So
It was like a vessel through which you
yeah,
could actualize this next step. And you kind of
yeah,
talked about that when you have something that is such a big part of your life, like
hmm,
morning in, morning out, night in, night out. This is what your life comprises of. It's
yeah,
really hard to make that, turn over that leaf. And so the fact that I'll just say it, the fact that God used baseball as a tool to get you into that space of just service. Because I think one of the other things I really wanted to do with this is have conversations that matter, yes, but also things that help us to think about who we are as people, who we are as human beings. And I think that story kind of illustrates it. Is this, at least for me, sometimes before I started like a small organization called We Are Human, it was about people. Like I would see people, and then it would be too easy for me to not do anything. Like
hmm,
that was what I had. Like I struggled with that internally, and it was just like I think the main goal was to help make it easier to be kind. I think, like sometimes, like when you have that blanket on the couch, then it becomes like, why not give it away type of thing,
right,
right? But when you're not in a position, and I found this about myself, when I'm not in a position to help, when I don't have like that mindset, I can think of an excuse right away, or like I can make it not happen, right? Like
yeah,
it's one of those things where you kind of grease the wheels a little bit and then just make it an accessible give. Like I feel like we naturally want to do that, but it just maybe
hmm,
doesn't seem like a clear option right now. And so my
yeah,
goal is to help make that a little bit easier for people. And I
right,
think that, yeah, like I don't know, the way that he used one like to these two baseball games and like this product to converge on this, and now you're able to get blankets to hundreds of people all across the city is a
yeah.
really beautiful thing.
Yeah, it started out super small, literally with one blanket, and not
Right.
even an idea of more. But I think the cool thing about God and when you in Jesus and whatever, when you start to fully grasp it and just have the willingness to want to understand, is
Mm.
it's not just that one day, right? It wasn't just give out this one blanket. It was continual guidance throughout the entire process to you
Yeah.
can actually make this into something. And it doesn't have to be blankets. It doesn't have to be anything like that, but just being able to be willing to accept God. He's working for you and with you all the time. It's not just one breakthrough thing. It's
Yeah.
not, it doesn't even have to be big or little. It is that he's just always there. You can always listen and talk to him. And he helped me turn this into something that I could never imagine. Once I like handed out the one blanket, I wanted to do more, and then we set a goal to have 100 blankets be given out by Christmas. And all of a sudden, somehow NBC Chicago reaches out to us and they say, "Hey, we heard about your story," and the story
So,
goes on. The story goes on the news, and I have this little tracker on our website that I'm looking at as I'm watching this on the news, and it's just 20, 40, 60, 80, and all of a sudden 200 people at one time are on our website, and we're just trying to give out 100 blankets, and people are
boom.
sending us stuff off Amazon, and it's arriving at the door. I went to my girlfriend's graduation for like a weekend, and I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Santa Claus, but
Yeah.
when Tim Allen turns into Santa and he gets home and his living room has all the boxes of lists,
Yeah.
that's what the living room here looked like
Damn,
when I
that's
got back.
crazy.
But there's boxes of blankets, and it's just so cool that I think there's so many people out there that want to help, but they just don't know
Word,
how.
bro.
You
I
know,
believe that.
they just don't know how. And when somebody gives them a reason to,
An
or if you
opportunity
think,
to, and
yeah,
yeah.
if you think about like Christmas when the red kettles are out there and they're raising millions of dollars to help
Right.
for Salvation Army, like people want to give, they just need to give a reason to. But I
Yeah.
guess my point to that is that we reached 120 days before Christmas, and the end of last year we were at like 883, I think. So there's it's crazy because that's such a huge success for us that we gave 883 blankets. But when you take a step back, you put it
Oh,
on the scale.
883. That's wild.
Yeah, yeah. But if you put it on the scale of 80,000 homeless people, like we didn't even make a dent, you know.
I
So
feel you.
there's so much more, and we're so excited because we've had a couple partners reached out that they're like, hey, we'll put a like box at our office, or we'll do this, and we're
Yeah.
so excited to like get it going again after this whole thing is done, because we
Yeah. Definitely.
unfortunately can't give out any right now, but
Yeah.
we'll reach 1,000 soon, and we're just gonna keep going as much as possible, because the cool thing is it's not like, I know we talked about this, and I wanted to definitely bring it up, but um, when it's hard sometimes to not take things personally. So like when I know I told you the story where one time I was handing out blankets downtown and I saw somebody else handing out blankets.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like,
It's my territory.
whoa, hey, like we're this is us. Like we're handing out, what are you
It's my
doing? And
block, bro.
yeah, I was like, come on, like we're handing out blankets. And then once again, it was like the guidance of God very
Yeah.
quickly to say, like, what is the purpose for you? Like,
Yeah.
you trying to be on Ellen? Like, what are you like, oh, what is your purpose here? Or
Yeah, you gotta check yourself.
are you
Yeah.
actually trying to help the homeless? Are you actually trying to make a difference? And then once that first happened, I was like, yeah, yeah, like check yourself here. That's
Yeah.
exactly what it is to help people. And I just
Yeah.
think, like we talked about before a little bit, it's not just a one-time thing for God. He continues to come back, check you a little bit, make sure you're going on the right direction. But when I understood that was God or the Lord,
Yeah.
whatever, talking to me, it's just so powerful and
Yeah,
helpful.
man. Yo, thank you so much for your insights today. I just want to end with one more question before I let you
Yeah,
go.
absolutely.
But this question is kind of more towards your personal philosophy on kindness or the way that people should be in this day and age. And I'm kind of thinking, I'm trying to figure out like a good question that I can end each episode on that kind of like
Yeah.
speaks to somebody's like unique take on the world. And so I'm thinking about this question, and I might change it for the next one. For now, I think this is the one. If you could change any one thing about how people interact today, so it could be from professionally, educationally, it could just be the way that we relate on a mass scale as people, and you could like take one behavior and switch it to something else, what would be that one behavior and why? Or what would be that one thing that you would hope people can maybe adopt, and why?
Yeah. Um, I think now it's a little, it's very common, I would say, to when you see somebody or meet somebody for the first time, that a lot of people put a guard up right away. You know, you
Mm,
see somebody or you're walking down the street and you don't know them, and there's a guard up. Like the one thing that I hate in Chicago is when people walk down the street. I know it's a little hard. There's millions of people walking around, but when people walk down the street and you just have your head down or your headphones in and you don't take the time just to smile or say hi
yeah.
to somebody, because the school that I went to in Iowa was there's like 1,000 people in the town. There's 1,000 people on the campus, and you walk down the street and or the sidewalk, and everybody's like, "Hey, how you doing? How you doing?" Like
Yeah. A
you
lot
don't stop
more.
talking the whole time when you're on your way back to your dorm.
Yeah.
So it was a huge transition coming here. But
True.
I would say that natural guard that people have and that they put up when they don't know people, um, is it just halts so many opportunities for like relationships or just like friendships or anything, even
I like that.
acquaintances. I think people um, can just grow so much and get out of their comfort zone a little bit by just saying like, hey,
Yeah.
have a good day, like how you doing, whatever. I just think that people are almost naturally to be shut off towards one another, that if we could just open that up, it totally would segue
Yeah.
to what you're saying, and natural kindness,
Yeah,
because
man.
we talked off the air a little bit about that commercial that circulated a while ago where one person
Yeah,
picked
kind of
one
like
thing
that
up for
pay it
somebody.
forward thing
Yeah.
type of,
And
yeah.
it just
It
naturally it
multiplies.
naturally happens, so like if you're in an elevator with somebody and you get out and like, hey, have a good day, and that person's like, oh, yeah, you too. Like,
Yeah.
totally catch them off guard. Then they get up to their office and hold the door open for somebody, and
Yeah. It's
it
that
totally can.
positive energy. It just keeps on
Yeah,
going, dude.
yeah.
And
So
it's
that
a
was kind of a
beautiful thing.
long-winded answer
No,
to your
that was
question, but
great.
that's probably the one thing
I think
that
that
I
that's
would change.
a really good way to end this one. So especially just all the talk about purpose, faith, and how that intersects with culture. I think that sort of answer about maybe taking each instance of meeting somebody as potentially life changing, like each moment that we have can house so much inside of it. And I think when we share those moments with other people, there's this, I don't know, almost this infinite amount of potential energy that is in that meeting right there. And you could
Yeah,
either just be two people on an elevator who don't say anything and go your separate ways, or it could be you talk to that person and for some reason there's something in your guys' past that link up that cause you to
hmm,
take a completely different trajectory in your life, right?
yeah,
And it's like those little things can really make a big difference. And so yeah, I don't know if you had any other future plans or things else that you wanted to kind of plug, because you're a busy man these days, even though everyone else is sleeping. It seems like you're
yeah.
still kind of keeping busy. So is there anything else that you wanted to touch on before we got off?
No, I think that's pretty good. I mean, this
Yeah,
is a definitely a great conversation. I guess just
I appreciate it.
right before we get off, the thing that we were just talking about that is super cool is it's doable too. It's not something like, what's one thing you want to change? I want to end war. Well, we probably don't have, we don't have the
Right.
power to do that, but
Hmm.
to institute like
To
kindness
do
into
the
everybody
kind
in
thing one
little things.
time.
Yeah,
Boom.
you that's totally doable for anybody listening, right? You
Yeah.
could totally do that, and
And it makes you feel
just
good
as you,
too.
yeah,
Most
yeah,
people don't
and
understand. Like we're made to give, I think. Like we're not
yeah,
made to get, we're made to give of ourselves, and that makes us feel valuable in a certain way.
yeah, yeah. And when I was like saying it the first time, that's just what came to my head. But then when you were talking about it, I was like, yeah, but like we could totally do that, and in just one
Definitely.
thing, it totally does. It's contagious,
So maybe we don't even need a magic wand. We just need whoever's
Yeah,
listening to this today. Do
Yeah,
one
for
kind
sure.
thing for somebody randomly, not random,
Yeah,
whatever it is. Just do something nice and
yeah,
see what happens. Because
mhm,
a lot of times we're just looking for somebody to do something nice to us, to almost give us an excuse to be nice to other people.
yeah.
But we can start that chain too, and then
And it could
somebody
be
else being a part of it.
totally free too.
Totally free.
There's so many things that you could just a smile at to
Man,
some
it doesn't
person
cost you
at the
anything.
you
And
know
it's almost like you can start creating a whole, like, it's, I don't know, it could change the world literally if we all just kind of smiled at each other a little bit more.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's definitely powerful.
Well, that's some wise words to end on. Dominic Hillesheim, thank you so much for your time today, bro. I appreciate you.
Yeah, no problem. It was great talking to you. This is
All
awesome.
right. Definitely, definitely. All right. Until next time, you be easy. And I'll catch you after this really quick, just so we can talk a bit. But
All right,
everyone
sounds good.
listening, thank you so much for checking it out. This is the Humankind Podcast, and we'll see you next time. Peace.